So how can you turn fear into fuel to grow a successful dropshipping business? Well, today I want to tell you a story about my journey, how I began my dropshipping business, which has now done over £700,000 worth of sales in just the last couple of years. So I want to tell you about the journey that I've been through to go from fearful, scared to start, doubting myself, all the way through to where I'm at now, so that anyone that feels like they can resonate, anyone that's in the similar position as I was back then, can learn how to turn that fear that you're feeling, that uncertainty, that doubt that you're not sure, how can you turn that into fuel that you can use to power you to build a successful dropshipping business? Firstly, I want to acknowledge that that fear that you're feeling, that uncertainty or doubt that you might have in the back of your mind, telling you not to start a business or not to join any sort of training program or leave the 9 to 5, that feeling that you've got in the back of your mind is completely normal. And it's that fear of the unknown that so many of us have, including myself. Before you start anything new, it's so hard to get out of your comfort zone at the start. So in this video, I'm going to state some methods that I use to get out of that uncertainty, away from that fear, and actually use it as a benefit for you to keep pushing and grow a business that you can be proud of. So stick around till the end of the video where I'll share the biggest insight, which I want to save till the end, to make sure that this video continues to improve as we go through. And I'm going to share a big insight into how I can actually turn that fear into one of my biggest advantages. So firstly, let's understand fear. Where does it come from? You need to acknowledge, first of all, that it's completely normal to have a fear about starting something new. And that self-doubt is going to be there for everyone as soon as you do something that's unknown. So we need to understand that the fear of the unknown essentially is deep-rooted in every single one of us. We are hardwired as humans to stay away from the unknown. In the past, if you went after something that was unknown, it was uncertain, it was risky for you to do something that you didn't know what the outcome was going to be. So we evolved over thousands of years to make sure that we stayed away from anything risky, and we stayed in our comfort zone because that's what's kept us safe for millions of years. Now, in today's modern day and age, going outside of our comfort zone, especially in the business sense, is not going to kill us. Doing something new, leaving a 9 to 5 job, pursuing a career or pursuing a business that you really want to go after is not going to kill you. And it's something that we shouldn't shy away from. Unfortunately, our brains haven't evolved very much from back in those times where if we left our comfort zone, it would lead to being outcast from the tribe. And so that's why you feel that fear or that strong doubt in yourself that you can't get started in something because you're trying to keep yourself safe. So it's important that we acknowledge it first, because the first step to overcome any fear is to acknowledge that it's there, to understand that it's completely natural, and then we can work on ways to overcome that and to push past that fear and to go after our goals anyway. So what are the common fears related to starting a business? A lot of the time, it's related to a fear of loss, a loss of money or time that you'd invest into starting a new project, a dropshipping business, and it's the fear of losing out. So this is where I can resonate with you 100%. Before I started my business just a few years ago, I had a fear that it was going to be a waste of time, it would be a waste of money to start. And I think that comes from that part of our brain that wants us to stay in the comfort zone and to stick with what it knows. However, the way I was able to get over this fear was to look at the risk of starting versus the risk of not starting. So I looked at the risk first of starting, and in my head I was thinking about losing the time that I'd invest, losing the money that I'd invest in starting a business. And that was the big thing in my head, why I wasn't going to start. There was that fear of loss. And then I considered the other option, which was not starting. And I wanted to work out what the risk was behind not starting. So for me, I was in a 9 to 5 job that I didn't feel very fulfilling. I didn't find it was going to let me achieve my potential. And it didn't excite me to go to work on a Monday morning. I hopefully a lot of people feel in the same way, because that's absolutely the way I felt. And I knew there was something else more that I wanted to do with my life and to achieve. So I realized that the risk of not starting was going to be 40, 50 years of work in a job that I wasn't passionate about at all. I was never going to reach my potential. And I look back on myself as a failure, further in life for not going after my goals. And then when I weighed up the two risks, so the risk of starting was losing some time and money by putting an effort into to get started. And the risk of not starting was viewing myself as a failure, never getting over the regret of not starting and not living my life to my potential and doing a job that I hated for 40 to 50 years. when I weighed the two up, it became quite clear that actually, although it felt like a big risk to start a business, it was nowhere near as big of a risk as not starting the business. So how do we turn this fear into fuel? Because I strongly believe that if you've got that fear and if you're worried about starting, that will actually help you in the long run. So the way I used it as fuel was that I realized that I was scared to start because of that fear of loss, because of the fear of wasted time or money. And so I used that as my incentive to make sure it had to work, because I couldn't go through a loss of time. I didn't want to waste my time. I didn't want to waste money by going after a dropshipping business. So I made sure that every morning I reminded myself of that fear, and that actually gave me the fuel every day to make sure that it was absolutely going to work. So I think if you have that fear of starting, which is completely normal, I'd put you in a category of actually the people that are most likely to succeed. Because when you have a fear and when you're worried about it not working, you can then use that and turn that in your mind as the fuel that you use to wake up in the morning to make sure that it absolutely will work. So think about this. In the morning, if you remind yourself, look, I've started this business. If nothing happens, I will have wasted time and money. So that fear, and switch on to that, feel that pain, that feeling in the morning. And I'd use that as the fuel to be like, okay, so in that case, what do I need to do to make sure this doesn't fail, to make sure this absolutely works? And the way I did that was to make sure I followed a program that I felt like was the actual step-by-step course to get to success. And then I made sure that every day I would achieve one thing, make one step of progress towards that goal every day before I went to bed at the end of the day. So using that fear, it turned into fuel so I could use it to actually make sure I knew what I was doing in terms of following a step-by-step guide, and make sure I followed that guide without veering away from the process. So I want you to take some action from this video. If you're the type of person that feels held back by fear, doubt, or if you're uncertain, I want you to take something away from this video that will actually make sure you can take action moving forward. All you need to do is grab a piece of paper and a pen and write down and get it out of your mind and onto paper the reasons why you don't feel like you can start a business right now. So write those down. And for me, I'll write them with you in my mind. I'll tell you right now, what I would have written down would be the fear of losing money. I'm worried that it'll be a waste of money. The second thing would be I'm worried that I'll spend a few months putting this all together and nothing will happen. And that was a big fear of mine as well. Other fears that I felt was the fear of the incompetence and not having any experience in dropshipping before, thinking that this wasn't going to work for me. I had all those feelings. So whatever it is for you, write down on a piece of paper, aim for at least 5 different fears that are holding you back and look at those on paper. Now, once you've done that, you can see clearly on paper what are the things that are holding you back. And this is where your biggest opportunities are. So you've just identified something that was very abstract in your mind just a few minutes ago. You've now identified the biggest things that are holding you back, but they'll also become the biggest opportunities. So now for each of those fears that you have written down, I want you to write to the side of them how you can flip that to work to your advantage. So for example, if you've written a fear that says, I am scared that I'm going to be losing lots of money if this dropshipping business doesn't work, I want you to flip that around and think about the positive and the risks that if you don't start. So for me, the fear of loss of losing money, I'd turn that around and I'd look at it and write down next to it, if I don't start this business, I would be giving away all of the upside, all of the potential to make millions with this business. And flip it around. So instead of losing money, think about how much money you can gain from going after this. Then, if it's the next one after that is the time that you're worried of investing and losing by starting this, then flip that into your biggest opportunity as well. And write down next to it, how is it going to impact your time by starting the business? What's the positive side? So for me, with starting a business like an e-commerce business, I want to regain control over my time. And by starting a business, you just write this in a simple line, I will now regain control over my time. I won't be bound by 9 to 5 or managers breathing down my neck anymore. Because as soon as you've got a business set up that can run without you, suddenly you have an income stream that is semi-passive and will come in without you having to dedicate 8 hours a day to it at all. So once you've written down the positive side of each fear and clearly identified how running a business or going into the passion that you want to follow is absolutely going to be a benefit, cross through the fear that you had before, cross that out on the page. And just by doing that, you'll visually see that you can get over any fear that's in your mind. You can see that you can get over it, and actually you're left with a list then of all of the different possibilities and opportunities that you have by going after your goals. So this is the exact method that I used to work out what the fears were that were going around my mind, and to flip it into the opportunities to give you fuel to actually take that fear and push on with your goals regardless of how you feel. So hopefully you found this helpful. Hopefully this has inspired you to take some action and to push on, because there's too many people that talk about starting, think about starting, but actually all you need to do is turn that fear into fuel and push on and make sure you go after your goals. And because there's absolutely an abundance of opportunity out there for you, you just need to make sure you try something, make some progress every day, and then you'll get to your goal before you know it. With that said, thank you so much for watching this video. Remember to like, subscribe, and comment if you enjoyed this video. If you've got any questions or any topics that you want me to cover, let me know in the comments down below, and I'll catch you in the next video.